Greetings all. Welcome to the Christmas special of the Alaska Bigfoot Studies. I am your host, Chuke. I do not have Rob Roy, Menzies, or Beans Baxter with me today because I'm giving a little break for the holidays, and it's kind of a good thing because Rob Roy is so busy at the Bigfoot Art Gallery that he hasn't had any free time. It's just nothing but customers in there to just stop and film stories with me. So we're looking forward to getting together after the holidays. I'm going to go out there and film a barrage of new videos for you guys, but I want to thank you guys. It's been 6 months strong every Sunday with a paranormal, mostly Bigfoot video. Shout out to all my supporters. Shout out to Jomo and the kids. They're all gathered around the tube every Sunday morning for their cartoon Bigfoot Chuke goodness. So kind of an interesting subject today, and it's something that keeps coming up, and I had to do a video on it, and that is Bigfoot around water. And just constantly, all animals need fresh water to live, but now we're getting these reports that one of the reasons why we can't find Bigfoot is possibly because they're living in the water. So it's really interesting that Nick Redfern from Mysterious Universe, he's a major Bigfoot researcher out there, he's saying this kind of the same thing that my buddy Patrick told me. Now, as many of you know, Patrick was the one, he lived in Western Alaska for 20 years, way out in the bush in the village. And he could not do a physical interview with me. He didn't want to be on camera because his wife is from the community there. She's an indigenous member of a village there, and she didn't want all her cousins, your husband's on there, he's on TV, on YouTube, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't blame him. Nobody wants that. And I grew up in a small town too, and that's just miserable. So I can't blame him for that. But Patrick's got all kinds of crazy stories. And he had a sighting when he was taking off from a village in Southwest Alaska. He saw what he believes is a hairy man, and it was in the Delta River system there. Oh, and I did want to say Merry Christmas Eve to everyone. I hope you all have a good Christmas Eve tonight and a good Christmas Day tomorrow. I didn't want to miss doing this, so we're going to just make it a Christmas special. So hope everybody has a joyful Christmas this year. So he saw this big brown, dark, furry thing in the water. It wasn't a moose, it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a big beaver. It was a big thing, and he thought about it. He's like, man, that had to have been a hairy man. And then he started telling me about some of the stories from the hairy man stories from southwestern Alaska, and he's saying he believes that they live in the water. Now that really made me go, whoa. And I was like, okay, Patrick, what do you mean? Are you saying they're, swimmers? Well, we know they're swimmers because there's all kinds of stories from the Pacific Northwest coast of them wading and even swimming in water. Or are they aquatic? Are they breathing water? Do they develop fish gills? And he didn't really have an answer for me. I want to talk to him some more about the subject because it's fascinating. But if we take a look at all these Bigfoot sightings, especially in the Northwest Pacific coast, well, when it comes to apes and water, we can't ignore the skunk ape. Now, the skunk ape is fascinating, mostly in Florida, but there are some other kind of southeastern states that have reports of the skunk ape. Definitely related to our wood ape that we have up here, but the skunk ape, I know Roy was saying it's smaller, and it is smaller because the reports of the skunk ape in Florida are 6'6" to 7 feet. And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's an escaped orangutan, but because sometimes it's reddish fur in color, but I really don't think so because it's way bigger than that. A lot of times it's 7 feet tall, and that is smaller than a lot of the reports we get here are between 7 to 10 feet tall. So really monstrous Bigfoot. But down there, it's not a small creature. It's smaller. They say it's small because it's small compared to what we have here. So the skunk ape, I mean, there's just years and years of sightings. And it goes back several hundred years to the Seminole Indians were talking about it as part of their culture. They know that there's a hairy man down there. And then you've got all these farmers and deer hunters running into them. And it's always like in the water and it stinks. I guess it smells like a wet dog mixed with a skunk. Like it is a nasty smelling creature, and it's not that nice either. We've got stories of the skunk ape not being very pleasant to people when it's discovered or its territory is encroached upon or comes upon some hunters. I'm not as familiar with the skunk ape. I'm fascinated with it, but by all means, if you have any information, please put it in the comments. I'm very interested in hearing about the skunk ape. But all these stories of Bigfoot swimming in the water, a lot of them are coming from the Pacific Northwest. We've got accounts, especially in Washington State. It was funny, the Forest Service down there even issued a warning, like if you're ever around standing water, be wary of Bigfoot, you know, look out for Bigfoot, because they know that's where a lot of the sightings are. It's always like it's standing in a river, it's crossing a river, in a lake. There's tons of sightings, California, Washington, Oregon, Montana even, you know, as we get a little bit farther inland, but all around water. Now, some of the stories even talk about, you know, we know about the wading. It's very common for a Bigfoot sighting to be standing in water, wading across a river, standing in a lake. But now we're getting stories of the Bigfoot swimming. One of the stories was even from Alaska, Ketchikan. These two people saw a Bigfoot out in the water. You know, I don't think it was salt water. I believe it was fresh water, but they said it was this big, dark, hairy creature that they saw looking at them. And then it took off and swam like a frog. So, I mean, doing the frog swim, kicking its legs out and going like that. Just fascinating. So even up here in Alaska, it's kind of confirming what Patrick said. They're in the water. Now, part of this is Bigfoot have been known to steal fish, just like brown bears will do, sometimes steal fish from people. So we got Bigfoot eating fish, and you've got these salmon, just these, you know, hundreds of thousands of salmon coming upstream some years, depending on, you know, where you are in different rivers. Very plentiful food source. So plentiful, in fact, it's able to sustain bears that get 900 pounds plus, you know, the Kodiak brown bears. So it makes sense that it would be a good food source for the Bigfoot to just eat fish. And in Alaska, we do have stories that the Bigfoot are meat eaters. They're carnivores, make no mistake. They've snatched deer from hunters in the lower 48 and up here. There's those stories, but we do have lots of stories of the Bigfoot with fish, eating fish, salmon, trout, whatever they can get. Mostly salmon in these big rivers, it's so plentiful. So that is pretty interesting. I would not want to run into a Bigfoot in the late fall when all the salmon are rotting, because when you run into a salmon bear, you know, a brown bear that's been eating that rotten salmon, their meat, just their pores from the inside, it just exudes this nasty rotten fish smell. And you talk about a skunk ape, that would be one nasty smelling ape creature that's just been eating rotten salmon. It's probably going to be pretty mean because it'd be so miserable smelling like that. So I keep going to back what Patrick said about these Bigfoot living in the water. Now, Nick Redfern, he started listing all kinds of stories from Washington, a story from Alaska that I mentioned. He started talking about stories from England, even from the Rendlesham incident, it's basically the Roswell of UK. That incident actually has some sightings of hairy creatures in the water. Now, sometimes during these sightings, the Bigfoot disappears in the water, and you know, it might be a big body of water, and some of these reports, they're like, yeah, it just vanished into the water. Now, there is a weird supernatural element to a lot of these Bigfoot stories that I can't explain, and I do think there is a supernatural, interdimensional aspect to it. Shout out to Jomo, he loves hearing the supernatural stories. So something's going on like that with these supernatural, interdimensional stories with Bigfoot. So I don't know if they're opening up a portal, because I do believe that they have the ability to travel in and out of this realm of existence, whether they're phasing out themselves or they're finding portals and they just know where they are and they can use them. But they could be doing that in the water, and it's just easier to get. But Nick Redfern was saying that's why we're not finding them, is because possibly they're living in the deepest, most unexplored places on this planet, which happens to be the ocean. So we do have sightings of Bigfoot around saltwater, absolutely. The meanest Bigfoot around, of course, at Kachemak Bay, over there in the headwaters of Cook Inlet. You know, I'm not going to say the name of the bay because it's so played out, but it's near the Sasquatch Bay that I go to. Those are right on the shore. We've got all kinds of sightings of Bigfoot on the shore of the ocean, the beach. So they're no stranger to water. They live around water. I wonder if there is something to this where somehow they're able to survive underwater, in the water. I mean, then you go back to the stories of the mermen. Some of those stories in England, at first it was a hairy ape-like creature, then it turned into an eel-like creature. So now we're back to shapeshifters. And I keep going back to, you know, Patrick is really big on this. And I mentioned last week that scientists are now admitting that they don't know what's beneath the surface of the crust, way down in the earth. They have confirmed there's giant bodies of water. So we know there's warmth down there, there's water. There could be giant underground ecosystems underneath in these caves, like in Dulce, New Mexico, all interconnected. And we do have reports of that. And some of the theories, I know it's getting out there, some of them are pretty fascinating. And with those theories come the different types of humanoids. The reptilians are really played out. And you know, I'm not into, you know, the really whacked out conspiracies, but some of it is pretty interesting when people talk about how, you know, humans branched off, or, you know, hominids, or, you know, just upright creatures branched off into these different categories. And one of them happens to be the lizard people, or whatever, the eel people, the fish people, and Bigfoot. And it's fun to think about, because if there is a network down there, you know, it could be tunnels going to the ocean, of course, and we could have Bigfoot just, and who knows, maybe they have developed an ability to breathe in the water. We are hearing reports that they've developed these abilities to shock people like an electric eel. You know, Rob Roy was saying they use kind of sound vibrations, and you hear it in your chest when they do that bellowing. But who knows? Something's going on, something weird, and I would not be shocked if, you know, there's something with the water, because Bigfoot are constantly drawn to water. They need it to live, but they're constantly around it. They're spotted in it, and sometimes they disappear in it. So I think something's going on with that. We might have some Bigfoot that are able to live in the water, just like Patrick was saying, and just like Nick Redfern was suggesting. So let me know what you guys think. A little bit of a shorter episode, but I will get back to my weekly Sunday episodes. We'll get a little bit longer ones. I'll get Beans and Rob back in the mix, and really looking forward to it. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for supporting me, and I will see you guys next Sunday. It's Chuke signing out.